We're at this event. DeSantis, we're in his home state. He didn't show up. Why do you think that is?
I can't speak for the reasoning behind the campaign for not showing up. We've all seen the headlines over the past couple of weeks, down in the polls, cutting staff, bad burn rate in terms of donations, and people point to the super PAC and say, oh, the super PAC's got all this money, okay, but his campaign burn rate is bad, and that's bad because of the lack of small dollar donors. They've been able to show that something like only 15% of their donors are small dollar, which means 85 are these high dollar donors, which means you haven't built out the infrastructure for that small dollar base in the way that we have seen campaigns like Vivek has done that. You saw Andrew Yang did that in 2020 on the Democrat side. Tulsi Gabbard was doing that. And so if your campaign is so top heavy with that corporate money, that's great for a launch, that's great for getting started, but it's not sustainable because your actual campaign has to keep going. And so there's been reporting as well that he could potentially be meeting with donors, trying to talk about resetting the campaign, reshuffling the campaign staff. Some people are, I think, moving over from the governor's staff to the campaign side now, and they're heralding that as a big, there's two operatives, they're heralding that as a big change. But my issue or my analysis of it, I should say, is I think they had, and this isn't a knock on anyone personally, but I think there was a fundamental misread of the Republican electorate, and particularly the Republican base, because people had this notion, they say, oh, well, you can do Trumpism without Trump, right? I can do the whole pitch, right? He's Trumpism without Trump. He takes all the populist nationalist rhetoric of Trump, those issues that Trump found were popular, and then bring them into a general election, but without the quote-unquote baggage of Trump, without the legal cases, without the indictments, and that can get him over the goal line in a general election. And I get where if you just keep repeating that, you might start believing it. But then the question is, that leaves out of the analysis a key factor, and that key factor is voters. So you must include actual voters and actual Republican voters in your analysis. You can't simply just go to them and tell them what's going to happen. Voters are not stupid. They're busy. So sure, everyone's got a million things to do every day. People have families. I have a family. I have kids. I get it. But people understand what's going on. And so when you come to them and say, oh, here's this guy, he's better, than the original, you're gonna like this, it's so much better. I'm sorry, but I think a lot of the DeSantis campaign just came across like Bud Light, like you're why wouldn't I just go for the real thing when I could have a lesser version of the real thing? If you're gonna go and campaign against Trump, there was potentially an opening in November, December, January, when I think a lot of people were putting the blame of the midterms and they felt there was a Republican underperformance and putting that on Trump. There was a time, possibly, a window, where if DeSantis had asserted dominance in that time frame and said, I'm making an attack on the alpha, I'm moving in, but he wasn't direct. He did all these sort of indirect plays, this indirect play of, I'm launching a book tour and I'm touring around for my book and I'm gonna these like sort of subtle criticisms without using Trump's name, and then with the Alvin Bragg indictment, not really saying anything for 24 hours. And there's been this has become a recurring phrase with the DeSantis campaign that we see again and again, where he waits 24 hours and then responds. Waits 24 hours, which sometimes is very good, obviously. But in politics and in media, people want that visceral gut response. And especially with social media, you want to know what everyone's saying at a given time. And people, you might say, oh, well, that's not fair. Well, tough cookies, right? That's the game now.